love asking people, especially with the just plethora of music we have right now. Who are you
Yeah.
listening to right now? Obviously, besides yourself.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think it's always fun to keep up with the new Music Friday. So I'm always interested every Friday, the new stuff that comes out. And I thought there's been a lot of really great stuff recently. I really actually loved the new Randy Travis song. I thought was so good. And I'm like hearing this kind of resurgence of like real country music that's happening. So I'm like really into this movement. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I have, like,
It's
my tried and trues. Like, I'm very new Music Friday, obviously, but, like, I also
yeah.
go back to, like, very, very old stuff and, like, I
Mhm.
guess is relative, but, like, Dixie Chicks and, like,
Course.
Luigi Miranda and, like, Chris
Yeah.
Stapleton, so things I grew up on. So I don't know if you're like me and, like, you get in, like, these kind of niches where you only listen to, like, one person for a long time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think I always try to do a mix of both. It's like I still go back to the stuff that really inspired me to move to Nashville in the first place and listen to the old stuff. There's actually this tuned in station called Y'all 106.7 that like I'm obsessed with. So if I'm in the car, I'm listening to that because it's so fun to hear like these old like I'm like, I don't even know this song from Hal Ketchum or John Michael Montgomery. I haven't really heard that one before. So I feel like they play so many cool obscure ones. So it's a combination of that and then the newer stuff that's coming out from artists just because I love to keep up. Like I love the new Miranda song, Wranglers. I actually love the new Marshmallow Kane Brown song, Miles to Go. I think Miles on it. And so yeah, and I love the new Randy Travis song. That's like
Yeah,
I'd say the newest song that really hit me. I was like, oh man, I really
I
love that
know.
one.
I know. To
So
hear
good.
his voice again brought back, like, a flood of memories. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna sit here and cry for a little bit."
Mhm. And I'm a big fan of Cody Johnson. I think Dirt Cheap is like one of the best songs I've heard in a really long time. Big fan of Randall King. He's another one that I really love. And yeah, I'd say like a lot of the artists that are new, but like just sticking true to the genre and like really real sounding country music. I'm like, I love that. It's great to have a mix of everything, but I love that there's a lane right now with that in it. It's so cool to me.
Totally. I love that you bring up Randall. That's what I listened to on my walk this morning. So I'm glad we're on, like, the same wavelength here, but
Yeah.
I wanna chat with you about Higher Ground. I
Yeah.
am obsessed with that whole project. So kind of
Aw.
the nerd in me wants to know, kind
Yeah.
of the creative process behind this and ultimately kind of how you ended up on that grouping of songs.
Yeah, with Higher Ground, I went through a really difficult time and I actually moved home. And so this was about a year before the pandemic. And it just felt like nothing was working. I had deals fall through. I had like a betrayal in a business situation happen. And was just like, oh my gosh, why is nothing working? I'd been in Nashville for like 15 years at this point. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over, expecting a different result. So I thought, you know what? I think I need to just take a little break. I actually ended up having a vocal cord surgery. So you can't like talk for a month and then you have to rehab, and so that took like a year to really get like back full force. And then the lockdown happened, so I was like in another sabbatical and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So then I had like an extended stay at home for like 2 years, which I was not anticipating, but always with the intention to go back to Nashville. It was just like, you know what, let me just take time to really go back to listening to the music that inspired me to move here in the first place and really tune into like my heart as to what exactly I want to say and sing about. And so I said, I'll go back to Nashville when I get a gig. And at this point, I had raised money to make an album because I'd never made an album. And so it was like at this point, I wasn't being spread thin, working on other people's projects. It was like there was really the time to focus on what I think we all wanted to do because we had the time for the first time, where you're not getting pulled in like so many directions. Road Higher Ground just it's like a prayer to be lifted above the difficult time I was going through. Because I was just in that, I mean, it felt like everything was falling apart. And look, I mean, I know I could have it so much worse, right? There's people out there struggling with, far more difficult things than I am. Let me repeat that because I had to just turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. Granted, there's people going through, way more severe situations than me, but that was a really dark and difficult time for me personally. So I started Higher Ground. I heard the melody in my head and I said, I'll go back to Nashville when I get a gig. So I got a gig, came back to Nashville, And at that gig, Vince Gill was there and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm making a record." Because at this point, I was making the record, right? So he said, I want to sing and play on it. He wrote down his name and number on a piece of paper that I saved. And so at this point, I was like, okay, well, now you have like the greatest
You have to
musician
make this.
singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, like now you really got to make the record to do with him. And so, and you need to have a song, that's worthy of being presented to him. So that was the impetus to go write something. And I heard something really melodic. I heard something that I felt could cross country, Americana, and gospel folk, something that felt like sort of genre bending, or like, and something that maybe that had a little bit of a soulful edge to it, because that's really when I think of soul, I think of him and Go Rest High on That Mountain. And he really is so great at always, involving gospel and country, old school, like that. He's so great at, he kind of, his music was genreless in a sense, even though it was like traditionally country in the beginning, probably because he's just, he's got so many influences. Like when you talk to him, you realize like, my gosh, this guy, and he can sing anything. But I wanted something that would really be a vocal showpiece for both of us, and something that felt soulful. And it just happened to be created, for me emotionally out of a really dark time. And it was like a prayer to be lifted above what I was going through. So I wrote it with Tommy Sims, who's like legendary songwriter. He wrote "If I Could Change the World," and he wrote "Like the Way You Work It." No, I mean his like repertoire is crazy, but I'm a huge fan of like the Bruce Springsteen stuff he produced, and Sheryl Crow and Johnny Lang. And so got with him, we wrote Higher Ground, and yeah, recorded with Vince. And then unfortunately my label agreed once I got signed to a deal. I thought, you know what, this would be a really great like Easter weekend release to kind of tie into like the holiday and everything.
Yeah. When you were back home, kind of going through all of that, did you ever imagine having like Vince on this project? Was he ever in
No,
your thoughts? Was this just like a pure manifestation that just worked out how you needed it to?
it was like the pure, I had never in a million years, I never would have asked him. B, I just never, no, I never in a million years thought it would have happened, so it's weird because now it's like I talk about it casually, but I'm like, that's not casual, like for that to happen. Like that guy's so talented. I just put his talent up there, like way up there when it comes to just, my God, musical talent alone.
Yeah.
So it was a blessing. And it was like the God wink that I needed at that time. And meeting Amy, and she was so sweet and kind and generous. It was sort of what I needed to feel and see to be like, okay, no, I'm not done in Nashville yet. There's still more to do. Like I have unfinished business and a reason to go back now. And so I really kind of credit them for
I
that.
love it. So I think one of my other favorite things about your music, and I know you've said this in press releases and stuff, is that you're really passionate about using your platform for good. So why is that so important to you, especially in this day and age?
I just feel like we need it now more than ever. It's like there's a rise in depression and anxiety amongst teens. It's crazy. People are more medicated than ever. I think music is medicine and it's really healing. And I think that that's like what it's really meant to be used for, is for people to escape or heal or feel things. And so yeah, and I think, in doing that too, it's like it helps you, right? It's like it helps serve you. Like if when I go, sing for inmates and do that kind of work, which I've done in the past, you're the one that's walking away with a gift. But also, I had a woman, I was doing like a charity show for a halfway house organization. And a woman that was working there came up to me and said, "You came and sang to me when I was in prison. I'll never forget it." And it's like those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, like you don't really think you're doing anything. And then you hear that and you go, that was the one thing I did this year. Or like, the Nashville shooting, I showed up the night of one of the victims' funerals at the home and sang with all the kids. And it was like that moment of all the kids singing with me and getting to know the family and showing up to serve with music at that time. It was like, if that's all I did that year, if that's the only thing I did, I could walk away going, I did something, you know?
Yeah. No, and I think, like you said, that's what's needed for me. Music has always been therapy. And so I'm so glad that you're actually like putting that into action. But I want to talk
Yeah.
to you too about your inspiration. I feel like inspiration is so like ebb and flow. And so how do
Yeah.
you feel the most inspired? Do you have like a process or like a certain chair you sit in? Is there like a certain latte you drink? Kind of talk to me about how you preserve that inspiration for yourself.
I think it comes from all places, and it definitely comes in waves. Like right now, I'm having a wave of ideas and things, and it's like it's a flow. And then I'll go through like droughts. You kind of go through like plateaus where you just feel, oh no, is it going to come back again? And it always does, right? But I do think you need to like charge the batteries. If you're exhausted, it's hard to feel inspired, and like you do have to fill the well. And as an artist, that requires reading it, like listening to other music, watching documentaries, go watching other people's shows. Like that was really fun. I played Stagecoach, and just to go watch some of the other sets and other people's shows, like that was really inspiring. And to stand in the crowd and to like not forget that this is where it all starts. It starts by being someone in the crowd, you know? And I think sometimes it's so easy for us to forget that as artists because you're just so used to doing your routine. But when you're like standing there in the crowd at the festival, you're like, oh, okay. What would I want to see? What would I want, if I were a show goer?
I love it. I love it. And I love that you bring up Stagecoach because I wanted to talk to you about the string of like powerhouse
Yeah.
performances you've had. I stayed up late to watch you on late night. I
You
put the
did.
yeehaw and meemaw. I go to bed at like 8 o'clock with a book. So talk to me about,
That's
kind of
awesome.
bringing this very powerhouse vocal to life and being able to kind of showcase everything.
So yeah, I think this year, 2024, has definitely been the most exciting year for me yet. According to the Zodiacs, it was my golden year. So maybe it really is. 24 is my lucky number, and 31. But yeah, so I think starting off the year, the Rose Parade. I'm a California native, so every year on New Year's Day, we watch the Rose Parade on TV as a family. And I mean, it was just an unbelievable experience to ride on a float and sing a song 37 times or 38 times. It was like for almost 4 hours, same song over and over. But I was so, I mean, just filled with adrenaline because like every 10 feet you move, you're exposed to like another, gosh, 1,000 people or whatever it is. So it was just such a wild, amazing experience. And then followed by Jimmy Kimmel, which was incredible. As an artist, that's like just one of those move the needle moments that you just like pray for, right? It's like a bucket list moment. And in doing that, it's like I've had people show up to shows just because they saw me on Jimmy Kimmel. It's like, oh, I've been following you because I saw you on Jimmy. I've gotten so many of these stories now, so the exposure was just huge. And then sold out the Troubadour, which was incredible. I went overseas, played C2C Festival in Scotland, London, which was amazing. Those fans are unbelievable. They know my music better than I do, which was crazy. I had to sing songs I hadn't sung in like 7 years. I'm like, okay, just you'll get it, you'll do it. Like, no clue what I'm doing. And I mean, sitting in like a 20,000 person arena, solo acoustic guitar, I was all by myself. Like, that was wild to do that, but such a good test for me. Such a good, like, rise to the occasion. You are all alone. Like literally, I went to Europe alone. I had not no one from my label. I didn't have a side player. It was me and my passport and my suitcase. So a challenge for sure, but I think it was one of the coolest moments of my life because it was like with it came empowerment and like, no, you know what? I can do it. And I can entertain like a band if it's just me. And I can rock that hard. And I'm gonna show people that I can do that. And I did.
Yeah.
Yay.
So here we are. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
And
talk
I
about like, pat yourself on the back.
I never
imposter
do.
syndrome be gone. So
I never do. I'm always like, you could have done better. What did you do wrong? Oh God, you did something,
you sound
but
like
it was a
me.
cool sense of accomplishment. I feel
Yes.
like it was accomplishment.
Yes. Well, I think this next thing we're going to talk about, you'll have to pat yourself on the back for. Otherwise, I will force you to do it. You have a song with Dwight Yoakam. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, I'm sure that sentence never thought that was going to be a sentence uttered out of your mouth or anybody else's mouth.
No,
But how did that
no.
come to be? And chat with me a little bit about the creative process there.
I met him and his wife, who is a complete angel, about 5 years ago at the CMA Awards at an after party, and they were so sweet. And I just straight up walked up to him. I'm like, "That's Dwight Yoakam." Walked up to them and I just said, "You have been my musical hero my entire life. I'm from California. Like the Bakersfield sound is my heart and soul. And like I just want to say thank you for inspiring me." And that was it. And then I we took a photo together and I tagged his wife. And so she started following me and was just so sweet, like brought him out to a show. I think they saw me sing like a live stream on a live stream for my church during the pandemic, during the lockdown. They were watching it. And we just developed a friendship, and just became friends. And her and I are both from really big Catholic families. So we have that in common. And like, just love the, just so passionate about that sound. And I have so much respect for him and would show up to shows. And so it just developed a friendship. And then I said, "Look, no pressure, but I wrote this song." And when we wrote verse two, we said, "What would Dwight Yoakam say?" Like, that's literally what we asked ourselves. It's like, what's something that's really cool and poetic? Because when you break down those songs, like, "I got heartaches in my pocket, I got echoes in my head," right? These are lyrics that are so poetic that he turned into mainstream country. And so it was like we wanted something really poetic in verse two and thought, what would he say? And so pitched in the song and he said yes. And so we ended up recording it and just needed, the right window of time in order to put it out, needed the right production. Butch Walker produced it, who's been a longtime friend of mine, and I've sung on his record. So I thought, this would be great for him because he's really more of an alternative guy. Like he comes from the alternative world, but he's a national now. He bought a barn, converted it into a studio, and he knows old school country like very well. But he also knows the rock world, and he's going to make a record that I don't feel is going to sound like everything else. And that was really important in doing this. Was like, I want something that feels like it doesn't sound like everything else, because to me that's what those Dwight records did. It was like, oh, the Pete Anderson guitars, and it just felt like it was this blend of Buck Owens but rock and roll and Roy Orbison, and it was like this timeless neo-traditional punk country. It was like this new thing that had never been heard. So I thought, if we could with this, just try to make it sound a little left of center so it doesn't sound like everything else in commercial country, would be my goal for this song and this collaboration. So I feel like we were able to capture that. I hope we were.
I
And
love
just what an honor to make a song with my musical hero, who's also now become my friend and a supporter, and I get to open for him on the road, and someone that I respect so much as a musician and a songwriter and an artist and a human being. So yeah, I just can't say enough great things about him and his wife, because really she's the reason why this happened too.
The real question is, are you going to wear matching jackets?
Girl, you know it. Like British fashion is my inspiration too. I'm like the Jaime stuff that he wears is like the bling and the western and the fringe and just like, oh, so cool. Yes.
Oh my
The
gosh.
answer is yes to
Yes,
that.
yes. I know. I was like, oh, that would be a great like single cover art. Is just the two of you in like matching jackets. I was like,
I
it's cheesy, but like, how fun would that be?
know. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So you're already doing so much this year, but I always kind of love to close with this question. What other goals do you have for yourself this year? What are you most looking forward to? Obviously, besides putting out this song.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think making a project that really I feel embodies like my artistic integrity is really something that I strive to do. And I want to get to 1 million followers. That's a goal that I have. And slowly building 1,000 people at a time, but we are building. And you never know when you're gonna have that viral moment. Like I did a little fun video at Stagecoach with an artist named Dax, who's a huge following. And like that got 2 million views, my most viewed video, with like zero promotion behind it. So I feel like just having fun like with social media is so important because it's something we all have to do, and it can be very draining, but also it's like it can be fun when you're not being monotonous with it. So that's a goal of mine, is to grow my following and to really just let people in on the journey of what's happening, because I think that's really what people want, is just to feel like they're a part of this experience with you, the highs, the lows, not being able to not being afraid to show vulnerability, and when things aren't working out, when you're struggling too. Like, I think, well, why not? You know, why does everything have to be so perfect and curated? I don't know that that's even what people want. Your